Alright, what's going on everyone, and welcome to the series in which I introduce you to all of the most powerful competitive decks in the modern format. The goal here isn't to give exact deck lists, as those change constantly, but rather just to give a brief overview of how the deck works so you can be prepared if you're new to the format. And today we're looking at Jeskai Breach, which is a sort of combo deck that can combo kill you in a single turn, but actually plays like a proactive tempo game when it's not comboing off. So let's take a look at the combo first. This starts with Underworld Breach. It's an enchantment that says non-land cards in your graveyard have escape. So normal escape cards usually have a mana cost, and then you have to exile a certain number of cards. And in this case, the escape cost is equal to that card's mana cost plus exile 3. So what this means is you have a non-land card in your graveyard, you can pay its mana cost, exile 3 cards, and cast it. Also, this enchantment sacrifices itself at end of turn. So, the second piece of the combo is any 0 mana artifact, like Mishra's Bauble or Mox Amber. So the bauble can be sacrificed to look at the top card of either your library or your opponent's, and then it replaces itself by drawing an extra card next turn. The Mox Amber just taps for mana. And then the final piece of the puzzle is Grinding Station. It allows you to sacrifice an artifact to mill 3 cards. Then, whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, it untaps. So with these 3 cards in play, for example, you tap Grinding Station, you sacrifice the bauble, that mills 3, then Underworld Breach will allow you to escape it by paying 0 mana and exiling the 3 cards you just milled. And then when you escape it, when it enters the battlefield, the Grinding Station will see an artifact entering and untap. And then you can start the loop over again, milling your entire deck into your graveyard. Or technically milling it into your graveyard and then exiling it. But how do you win? And the answer is Thassa's Oracle. It's a 2 mana 1/3 that wins the game on the spot if you have no cards in your library. Sort of. So when it enters, you look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. So if this is the only card you have, your devotion is going to be 2. You can then put one of those cards on your library and the rest on the bottom. However, if X is greater than the number of cards in your library, you win the game instantly. So, if you have 1 card in your library and your devotion to blue is 2, you would just win the game. And don't forget that Underworld Breach gives all non-land cards in your graveyard escape, so you don't have to worry about milling over Thassa's Oracle and losing it, because that's how the deck wins actually. The idea is you mill over your entire library. Once you hit an Oracle, you want to make sure that you don't exile that when you're escaping stuff. Ideally, you already have, several cards in your graveyard when you start the loop. So you see an Oracle and you just keep exiling other things until you have 1 or 0 cards left. Then you escape the Oracle and win on the spot. So to support this combo, the deck plays Emery, Lurker of the Loch, Ledger Shredder, and Teferi Time Raveler. Emery will mill 4 when it enters the battlefield, then it can tap to cast an artifact from your graveyard. Since 2 of your combo pieces are artifacts, this helps find them and keep them if they get blown up, because you can just recast them. Ledger Shredder connives whenever someone casts a second spell per turn. This allows you to dig through your deck to find combo pieces, and you can just ditch artifacts into your graveyard, because once you start comboing off, you just escape them from the graveyard anyway. And also Emery can reanimate them. And then Teferi protects your combo turn because his static ability says that opponents can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery. So in other words, they can't cast things at instant speed, so they can't cast counter spells or anything like that. The only way they can interact with your combo is if they already have an answer on board, but they can't be casting spells with a Teferi down. The rest of the deck is very interactive and proactive. We have things like Lightning Bolt and Unholy Heat in the mix. Lightning Bolt Classic deals 3 for 1 mana. Unholy Heat deals 2 unless you have Delirium, which means you have to have 4 or more card types in your graveyard, at which point it does 6 for 1 mana. And then the deck also plays Ragavan. I always complain every single red deck that ever exists plays Ragavan, but it does change how this deck plays, because with Ragavan, Ledger Shredder, and the burn spells, this deck actually doesn't feel like a janky combo deck that's just trying to protect a combo. It can actually proactively pressure the opponent's life. So Sometimes it just wins by playing aggressively, playing like a turn 1 Ragavan, turn 2 Ledger Shredder, and then blowing up blockers. So it is capable of playing a tempo game, it just has an infinite insta-win combo built in. Some other cards the deck usually plays are Expressive Iteration, Ether Spellbomb, Springleaf Drum. So Expressive Iteration is just an amazing card filterer to find combo pieces or removal, whatever. You look at the top 3, you put 1 in your hand, 1 on the bottom of your library, and 1 into exile, and you can cast it until end of turn. The Spellbomb can draw or bounce, and it works really well with Emery because you can recast it every turn. So every single turn you can either keep a threat off the board or you can draw an extra card every turn. With Emery and Spellbomb, you can draw 2 cards every turn, basically. Springleaf Drum can just really speed the deck up. Remember that Emery has her cost reduced by the number of artifacts you have, so Springleaf Drum can actually power out Emery super quick. And an important land in this deck is Urza Saga, so it can tap for mana initially. After it gets a second lore counter, you can pay to tap it to put huge constructs into play. You can do that twice because you can do it the turn it gets the second lore counter, and then you can do it during your upkeep after you untap on turn 3. So it makes a couple big tokens, and this deck does have a lot of artifacts as you've seen. And then stage 3, it sacrifices itself and finds an artifact with mana value 1 or 0, and it puts it onto the battlefield. And there are tons of useful things to find. Not only do we have the Drum and Spellbomb, but we also have our 0 mana artifacts that we combo off with if we somehow haven't found those already. And then some decks play Grape Shot as well. Sometimes it's in the main, sometimes it's in the side. It's an alternate win condition. It deals 1 damage to any target, but it has Storm, so it's going to copy itself for each spell you've played this turn. So when comboing off with Underworld Breach, the escape mechanic says you can cast it from the graveyard for its escape cost, so it will count as casting a spell when you go through your loop. So this is another way to combo kill. Not every deck plays this. In fact, I would say most don't. There's more that don't play it than do, but it is something that exists, so I think it's at least worth mentioning. And that is the basic idea of Breach decks. This is basically a Jeskai spell tempo deck with Ragavan and Ledger Shredder, but it also has a combo that can win the game instantly. So this deck can kind of attack on 2 fronts. It can pressure life totals while also building an instant win combo on the side. So yeah, if you're interested in exact deck list, check out the description. There will be a link to multiple metagame tracking websites, and you can look over those yourself. Also, if you like this video, I have an entire playlist dedicated to these modern deck guides, and you can find a link to that in the description as well. But in the meantime, I hope this video was interesting. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.